Okay, so you sent over a ton of material
Yeah.
about the metaverse.
Yeah.
Podcast plans, articles, research notes. We're talking a serious deep dive here.
Yeah.
And you want to know if it's all still relevant in 2025?
Right.
Especially after that initial buzz kind of faded?
Yeah, it's a great question, especially since so much has happened in the tech world since that initial metaverse frenzy.
Yeah.
Remember when Facebook went all in, rebranded to Meta, and everybody thought we'd be living in virtual reality by now?
Oh, yeah. I remember I even considered buying like a virtual plot of land.
Right.
But then things got quiet.
Yeah.
So what is the state of the metaverse in 2025?
Well, first we should probably clarify what we mean by metaverse.
Yeah.
Because it's become a bit of a buzzword.
Okay.
It's not just about strapping on a VR headset.
Right.
It's broader than that.
Okay.
Think shared, persistent digital spaces where people can interact and maybe even create and own things.
So are we talking about something like Second Life?
Exactly.
Which has been around forever. Or even games like Fortnite.
Yeah.
Those have been doing the metaverse thing for years, right?
Exactly. You're already thinking along the right lines.
Okay.
Second Life, Fortnite, Roblox, they all fit the definition in a way.
Okay.
But what people are really excited about is the potential for these spaces to become more immersive, more integrated into our lives, and maybe even powered by new technologies like Web3.
Okay. So that's where all the hype came from.
Yeah.
This promise of this incredible, persistent virtual world where we could work and play and socialize. But if games like Fortnite have already been doing this,
Right.
why did the metaverse suddenly become such a hot topic?
I think the pandemic played a big role.
Okay.
Suddenly, we were all forced into digital spaces for work and connection.
Right.
So the idea of a more immersive internet, a place where we could truly be together virtually, really took hold. And then you had companies like Meta pouring billions into the idea, fueling that hype cycle even further.
So where does that leave us in 2025? Are people actually using these metaverse platforms?
Well, that's where things get interesting.
Okay.
Meta bet big on Horizon Worlds,
No,
but the report suggests it hasn't quite lived up to the hype. User adoption is lower than expected, and some say the platform feels a bit empty.
So even with all that investment, Meta hasn't quite cracked the code.
It highlights the challenge of building a metaverse experience that people genuinely want to spend time in, because it's one thing to create the technology, but quite another to make it engaging and meaningful for users.
Okay, so that's Meta's attempt.
Right.
What about other big tech players?
Yeah.
The research also mentions Apple and NVIDIA. What are they doing in the metaverse space?
Well, it seems each company has its own strategy.
Okay.
Apple, with its Vision Pro headset, is going for a more premium mixed reality experience that blends the digital and physical worlds.
Okay.
Think high-quality AR experiences. Maybe even laying the groundwork for more immersive metaverse applications down the line.
And what about NVIDIA? They make graphics cards, right?
Right.
Not exactly virtual worlds.
You're right. They're not building virtual worlds themselves.
Okay.
Instead, NVIDIA is focusing on the technology power in the metaverse.
Okay.
Their Omniverse platform is designed for 3D design collaboration and simulation, and their powerful GPUs are essential for rendering complex virtual environments.
So it's almost like Meta is trying to create the whole experience.
Yeah.
Apple is aiming for a more polished and integrated approach. And NVIDIA is providing the picks and shovels for the gold rush.
That's a great analogy. And it's not just those three.
Right.
Microsoft, Google, and countless startups are also exploring the metaverse, each with their own unique angle.
Yeah.
It's a complex landscape with a lot of moving parts.
Okay, so we've got a lot of players, a lot of hype, and some pretty ambitious goals.
Right.
But is the metaverse really going to be relevant in 2025?
Yeah.
Or is it just a bunch of overblown promises?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
And the research lays out both sides of the argument.
Okay.
Some believe the metaverse has the potential to revolutionize how we work, learn, and interact. Imagine attending virtual meetings that feel like you're actually in the room.
Right.
Or training for complex jobs in realistic simulations. The possibilities for enterprise use cases are huge.
That's a compelling argument.
Yeah.
But the research also mentioned some skepticism about the metaverse's relevance.
Right.
What are the arguments against it taking off?
Cost is a major factor.
Okay.
VR and AR headsets are still expensive for many consumers.
Right.
And as we saw with Horizon Worlds, getting people to actually use these platforms consistently is a big challenge.
Yeah.
Plus, the emergence of powerful AI tools has arguably stolen some of the tech spotlight.
It's a mixed bag.
Yeah.
Huge potential, but facing some serious obstacles. What I'm curious about is if the initial hype has died down and widespread adoption, still a question mark. What's keeping the metaverse concept alive?
Yeah.
The research mentioned something about gaming and entertainment.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Even if the broader metaverse vision is slow to materialize,
Right.
games like Fortnite and Roblox are thriving examples of shared digital experiences that fit the metaverse mold.
Okay.
And they're attracting millions of users, especially younger generations, who are already comfortable in these virtual spaces.
I see what you mean.
Yeah.
It's almost like gaming is keeping the metaverse dream alive, even if it's not the Ready Player One scenario people were imagining a few years ago.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder if entertainment might be the key to mainstream metaverse adoption. If people are already spending hours in these virtual worlds for fun, maybe it's not such a leap to start using them for work education or other purposes.
Like the metaverse might sneak up on us almost without us realizing it. We'll be so busy having fun in these virtual worlds that suddenly working or attending a virtual conference there won't feel so strange.
Yeah.
But there's another piece of the puzzle we haven't talked about yet. Web3.
Right.
That seems to be a big part of the metaverse conversation, too.
Absolutely. Web3 is a whole other layer of this complex landscape, and it has the potential to change the game entirely.
Yeah.
It brings a whole new set of possibilities and challenges to the table, and it's definitely worth exploring further.
Okay.
Yeah. Web3, it's a term that gets thrown around a lot, but the research you sent over suggests it's more than just a buzzword.
Right.
It's potentially the next iteration of the internet.
Okay.
Built on blockchain technology and focused on giving users more control over their data and digital assets.
Okay. That sounds intriguing, but also a bit complicated.
Yeah.
Can you break it down for me?
Sure.
What's the difference between Web3 and the internet we use today?
Think of it this way.
Yeah.
The internet we know now, often called Web 2, is largely controlled by big tech companies. They set the rules, they collect our data, and we kind of have to play by their terms.
Okay.
Web 3 aims to change that by using blockchain technology to create a more decentralized and user-centric internet.
So instead of relying on companies like Facebook or Google, Web3 puts the power back in the hands of the users.
Exactly. It's about shifting control from centralized platforms to individuals and communities.
Okay.
And this ties directly back to the metaverse.
Right.
Because it raises questions about who owns and governs these digital spaces, how virtual economies function, and how we interact with digital assets.
I'm starting to see how Web3 could shake things up in the metaverse.
Yeah.
But how does this all work in practice? What are the specific technologies driving Web3?
Blockchain is the foundation.
Okay.
It's a secure and transparent way to record transactions and track ownership.
Right.
Think of it as a digital ledger that everyone can see and no one can tamper with.
Okay.
This makes it ideal for creating digital assets that are truly unique and verifiable.
Okay.
Which brings us to NFTs.
NFTs. Those were all the rage. A while back, everyone was buying and selling digital art as NFTs.
Right.
But how do they fit into the metaverse?
Well, imagine you own a virtual storefront in a metaverse world.
Okay.
That ownership can be represented by an NFT, a unique, verifiable token that proves you own that specific piece of digital real estate.
So it's like a digital deed for virtual property.
Exactly.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But NFTs can be more than just virtual real estate, right?
Exactly. NFTs can represent ownership of any unique digital asset.
Okay.
Virtual clothing, in-game items, even your digital identity. This opens up all sorts of possibilities for creativity, self-expression, and even economic activity within the metaverse.
Okay, now we're talking. So you can buy, sell, and trade all sorts of digital stuff in the metaverse, all verified by NFTs.
Right.
What about the financial side of things? Do you need a whole new system for that?
That's where DeFi comes in.
Okay.
Decentralized finance. It's about building financial systems on blockchain technology without relying on traditional banks or intermediaries.
Why?
Think cryptocurrency transactions, lending platforms, and even new ways to earn and spend money within the metaverse.
So instead of using dollars or euros, the metaverse could have its own entirely separate financial ecosystem built on cryptocurrencies.
That's the idea, and it's already happening in some metaverse projects.
Very good.
The research mentioned Decentraland and the Sandbox.
Right.
They're both built on blockchain technology and use cryptocurrencies for transactions within their virtual worlds.
Those names ring a bell. What makes those platforms different from, say, Meta's Horizon Worlds?
It comes down to decentralization.
Okay.
Meta's approach is more like a walled garden where they control the platform and the rules. Decentraland and the Sandbox, on the other hand, are built on the idea of community ownership and governance.
Okay.
Think DAOs.
DAOs.
Yeah, decentralized autonomous organizations.
DAOs. That sounds familiar. Can you remind me what those are?
Imagine a group of people who share a common goal, let's say managing a virtual world. They create a DAO, which is essentially a set of rules encoded in smart contracts on a blockchain.
Okay.
These rules determine how decisions are made, how resources are allocated, and how the community governs itself.
So instead of a single company calling the shots, a DAO allows for collective decision-making and ownership.
Exactly. It's like a digital co-op for managing shared resources and making decisions in a transparent and democratic way.
Okay.
And this concept can be applied to all sorts of things in the metaverse, from governing virtual spaces to managing virtual economies.
Okay, this is starting to feel like a real paradigm shift, but I have to ask, is Web3 all it's cracked up to be?
That's a great question.
The research also mentions some potential challenges and criticisms.
Right.
What are those?
You're right. It's not all sunshine and rainbows.
Okay.
One of the biggest concerns is scalability. Blockchain technology, as it stands today, can be slow and energy-intensive, making it difficult to handle the massive amounts of data and transactions a truly global metaverse would require.
So even if the metaverse is all about decentralization, we still have to deal with the limitations of the technology itself.
That's one hurdle. Then there are the regulatory challenges.
Right.
Governments around the world are still trying to figure out how to deal with cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology, which creates uncertainty for businesses and investors operating in the metaverse space.
I imagine that uncertainty also creates opportunities for scams and security risks, which we've already seen happen in the crypto world.
Unfortunately, you're right. The crypto space has seen its share of scams and hacks, which can erode trust and make people hesitant to participate.
So it seems like Web3 brings some exciting possibilities to the metaverse, but also some very real challenges. It's almost like a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Is it truly as decentralized as it claims to be, or are we just shifting control from one set of powerful players to another?
That's a crucial question to ask. While Web3 aims to distribute power more evenly, it's important to be critical and watch for potential new power structures emerging.
Right.
We need to ensure that Web3 lives up to its ideals of openness, accessibility, and user control.
Okay, so we've explored Web3 and its potential impact on the metaverse.
Yeah.
It's clearly a complex and rapidly evolving space with both exciting possibilities and potential pitfalls.
Yeah, it is.
But there's another piece of the puzzle we need to look at. The technology that could make the metaverse truly immersive. AR and VR.
Absolutely. AR and VR are essential to understanding the full potential of the metaverse experience.
Yep.
But before we get lost in a virtual rabbit hole, let's define our terms.
Okay.
What exactly are AR and VR, and how are they different?
Right back to basics.
Yeah.
I know AR stands for augmented reality and VR for virtual reality, but beyond the fancy names, what do they actually do?
Imagine you're walking down the street and you see digital information overlaid on top of the real world through your smartphone or a pair of glasses. Maybe it's directions to your destination, information about a nearby building, or even a virtual creature interacting with your surroundings. That's augmented reality.
Okay.
Enhancing our perception of the real world with digital elements.
Okay, so it's like adding a digital layer to our everyday reality.
Exactly.
I remember Pokemon Go, that was a big AR hit a few years back.
Right.
And those Snapchat filters that give you dog ears or make you look like you're wearing makeup, those are AR too, right?
Exactly. AR is all about blending the digital and physical worlds in a way that enhances our experience of reality. VR, on the other hand, is a completely immersive experience.
Okay.
You wear a headset that blocks out your physical surroundings and transports you to a virtual environment.
Right.
Think Meta Quest headsets or PlayStation VR. Those are prime examples of VR technology.
So AR is about enhancing our existing reality, while VR creates entirely new, separate realities that we can step into.
You got it. It's like the difference between adding sprinkles to an ice cream cone versus diving headfirst into a giant sundae. Both can be enjoyable, but they offer very different experiences.
Okay, that's a delicious analogy, but what about the technology itself?
Yeah.
How does all this AR and VR magic actually work?
It's a fascinating blend of hardware and software working in sync.
Okay.
On the hardware side, you have the headsets themselves,
Right.
which use screens, lenses, and sensors to create the visual and spatial experience. Then there are controllers that track your movements and allow you to interact with the virtual environment.
Okay.
And some systems even use haptic feedback to simulate touch sensations, adding another layer of realism.
Haptic feedback, so you can actually feel things that aren't really there. That sounds pretty wild.
It is. Imagine reaching out and touching a virtual object and feeling its texture and weight, or feeling a gentle tap on your shoulder from a virtual companion.
Right.
Haptic feedback adds a whole new dimension to the metaverse experience.
Okay. I'm starting to see how this could get really immersive. But none of this would be possible without the software.
Right. Absolutely powerful game engines like Unity and Unreal Engine are used to create these incredible virtual worlds.
Yeah.
Everything from realistic landscapes and characters to complex physics and interactions. Right. It's a combination of art technology and a whole lot of creative coding.
Sounds like building a metaverse takes a whole team of talented people.
It does.
But how do AR and VR specifically enhance the metaverse experience? I mean, I get that it makes things more immersive, but is that all there is to it?
Immersion is a big part of it, but it goes beyond just that.
Oh.
AR and VR have the potential to revolutionize how we interact with each other and with digital content within the metaverse.
Right.
Imagine attending a virtual meeting where you feel like you're actually sitting across the table from your colleagues, even if you're miles apart.
Right.
Or think about training for a complex job in a virtual environment that perfectly mimics real-world conditions, allowing you to learn and practice without any risk.
Okay, now that's starting to feel truly transformative. No more awkward Zoom calls or risky on-the-job training. Sign me up.
Right, and think about the possibilities for education.
Okay.
Imagine history lessons where you can virtually step back in time and experience historical events firsthand, or science classes with interactive simulations that bring abstract concepts to life. The potential for AR and VR to revolutionize learning is immense.
Wow, you've painted quite a picture. But I have to ask, are there any downsides to using AR and VR in the metaverse?
Sure.
I mean, it all sounds pretty amazing, but there's got to be a catch, right?
Of course, there are always challenges. Cost is a big one.
Okay.
High-quality VR headsets are still quite expensive, which limits accessibility for many people.
Yeah.
And then there's the learning curve. Getting comfortable with VR interfaces and controls can take time and practice.
Yeah.
It's not always as intuitive as interacting with the real world.
And I can imagine spending too much time in VR could feel isolating.
Yeah.
It's one thing to chat with friends in a virtual world,
Yeah.
but it's not the same as face-to-face interaction, is it?
You've hit on a key concern. Finding the right balance between the physical and digital worlds is crucial.
Right.
We don't want to become so reliant on virtual interactions that we lose touch with real-world connections and experiences.
It seems like the future of AR and VR in the metaverse is still very much up in the air.
Yeah.
There's so much potential, but also some real challenges to overcome.
The future is always uncertain, but that's what makes it so exciting. There are some emerging trends that could dramatically shape how AR and VR evolve in the metaverse.
Okay.
For instance, have you heard of mixed reality?
Mixed reality.
Or MR for short.
Mixed reality. That sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie.
It might sound futuristic, but MR is getting closer to reality every day. Imagine wearing lightweight AR glasses that seamlessly blend digital information into your field of vision, allowing you to interact with virtual objects that appear as if they're part of your physical environment.
So?
That's the promise of mixed reality.
So instead of just seeing Pokemon superimposed on my street, I could have a virtual pet that actually interacts with my furniture. That's mind-blowing.
Yeah.
But what about VR? Are there any exciting developments on that front?
VR is evolving rapidly, too. We're seeing a push towards more comfortable and lightweight headsets, making VR more accessible for everyday use. And the graphics are becoming increasingly realistic, blurring the lines between virtual and real even further.
But wouldn't truly immersive VR require some pretty advanced technology?
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about tricking our brains into believing we're somewhere else entirely.
You're absolutely right. And that's where things get even more futuristic and potentially a bit ethically complex.
Okay.
Researchers are exploring technologies like brain-computer interfaces, which could allow us to control virtual experiences with our thoughts alone.
Whoa. Directly plugging our brains into the metaverse? That sounds both incredible and a little terrifying at the same time.
It's a double-edged sword for sure.
Yeah.
There are immense possibilities for creating mind-blowing experiences, but also serious ethical considerations around privacy control and the very nature of reality itself.
Right.
These are conversations we'll need to have as these technologies continue to develop.
Okay, we're definitely getting into deep philosophical territory now, but before we spiral into an existential crisis, let's bring it back to the metaverse. We talked about NVIDIA's focus on AI earlier. What role could AI play in shaping these virtual worlds?
AI is a game changer for the metaverse.
Okay.
It can be used to create more realistic and interactive virtual environments.
Okay.
Imagine AI-powered characters that respond to your actions in nuanced and believable ways, or virtual worlds that adapt and evolve based on your choices, creating truly personalized experiences.
So no more clunky NPCs with repetitive dialogue.
Right.
That's a big plus. But seriously, AI could make the metaverse feel much more alive and dynamic, couldn't it?
Precisely. And as AI continues to advance, the lines between the real and the virtual will become even more blurred.
Right.
It's a fascinating and in some ways a little unsettling prospect to think about.
Well, after this deep dive into the metaverse, AR, VR, and now AI, I'm definitely feeling a bit overwhelmed.
Yeah.
It's clear that we're on the cusp of some incredible technological advancements, but also facing some profound questions about how these technologies will shape our lives and our very understanding of reality.
Right.
It's a lot to process.
It is indeed. And amidst all this technological innovation, one big question remains. When will we see the metaverse go mainstream? Is it a matter of years, decades, or even longer?
That's the billion-dollar question, isn't it? We've covered so much ground today, from the hype and the challenges to the mind-boggling potential of the metaverse and the technologies driving it. What are your thoughts? Do you think the metaverse is just around the corner, or is it still a distant dream?
Honestly, it's tough to say for sure. There are so many factors at play: technological advancements, social adoption, economic forces, and even ethical considerations. But I think one thing is certain: the future of the metaverse is being shaped right now, and it's up to all of us to decide what kind of digital world we want to create.
Okay, my brain is officially full.
Yeah.
We went from the initial metaverse hype to the realities of 2025, explored the wild world of Web3, and even dove into the potential of AR and VR. I feel like I've just fast-forwarded into the future.
It's a lot to take in for sure. But remember, the point of this deep dive wasn't to give you all the answers.
Right.
It was to help you make sense of the information you've gathered and form your own opinions about the metaverse.
So no crystal ball predictions on when we'll all be living in virtual reality then?
Afraid not, but I think the most important takeaway is that the metaverse isn't a fixed destination.
Okay.
It's a constantly evolving landscape shaped by technology, human behavior, and a whole lot of imagination.
That actually makes me feel a bit better, like we have some say in how this digital future unfolds.
Exactly. And that brings us back to you.
Okay.
You've done your research, you've heard the arguments, you've considered the possibilities. Now I'm curious, what stands out to you the most? What resonates with your own thoughts and interests?
That's a good question. I think what really strikes me is the potential for human connection and creativity within the metaverse. It's not just about escaping reality, it's about expanding it.
Yeah.
Creating new ways to interact, learn, and express ourselves.
That's a great insight at its core. The metaverse is about human experience.
Yeah.
It's about leveraging technology to amplify our capabilities, break down barriers, and ultimately connect with each other in new and more meaningful ways.
But we can't forget about the potential pitfalls, right?
Right.
Privacy concerns, control issues, accessibility barriers. Those are all important factors to consider as the metaverse evolves.
Absolutely. As with any powerful technology, there are risks and ethical considerations that we can't afford to ignore. It's our responsibility, both as individuals and as a society, to ensure that the metaverse is developed responsibly and benefits everyone, not just a select few.
Well, you've definitely given me a lot to think about. I feel like I need some time to process all this information and develop my own personal metaverse manifesto, so to speak.
That's a great idea. And as you continue exploring this ever-evolving landscape, I'll leave you with one final thought. If you could design your ideal metaverse experience, what would it look like?
Oh, that's a tough one. But I think it would be a metaverse where knowledge is freely accessible, where creativity knows no bounds, and where everyone feels welcome, safe, and empowered. That's my starting point. Anyway, thanks for guiding me through this deep dive. It's been an incredible journey.
The pleasure was all mine. And remember, the exploration doesn't end here. The metaverse is constantly changing and evolving, and your journey of discovery has just begun.